what would be the very first thing you would have them do with AI that would give them their time back?
I always tell people to start with a time study, at least 4 days and for 15 minutes at a time. So every 15 minutes, my alarm goes off. I write down what I'm doing at that time. And then I put that into ChatGPT and I say, okay, based on what you see here and based on what you know about me, like my personality, my preferences, how the ways that I make money best, that kind of thing. And I use it for other stuff too in my personal life as well, like cooking. I started using AI and asking it to go step by step with me. And it turns out I'm not actually a bad cook. I just have a hard time following instructions and like staying focused long enough to get through a whole thing. And now I'm like, I'm amazing at this because I'm actually done, and we can move on to the second step. And so it literally just goes step by step for me, almost like I have like a chef tutoring me in the kitchen.
Welcome to Unreasonable Autonomy. My name is Sarah Grace. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs and innovators who refuse to settle. Here we dive deep into raw, real conversations with boundary pushers who have pursued seemingly impossible ideas and yet have achieved unreasonable results, whether that's in their faith, relationships, health, politics, yes, even business. All of those conversations are happening right here, right now. So let's buckle up because this isn't about playing it safe. Unreasonable ideas, unstoppable results. Let's go. So honored to welcome to the podcast the amazing Brittany Long. Brittany Long is the AI cloning expert who works with ambitious entrepreneurs to automate, clone, and scale their businesses with AI for a regret-free life. Brittany is known for her out-of-the-box thinking and pulls from her experience as an award-winning educator and copywriter to create engaging, actionable AI training and support. Let's start the conversation with the amazing Brittany Long.
You guys, welcome back to the podcast. You guys, we are diving into the extraordinary, scary, amazing, productive versus non-productive world of AI. But most importantly, you have to know who is sitting across from me. I know you've already heard her bio and you're like, this is why she's so great. And this is the amazing things she's done. But I am so excited to introduce you to my dear friend, Brittany Long. Brittany, I'm so glad that you are here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
This has been kind of a long time in coming for Brittany and I, right? We have wanted to collaborate. We have wanted to sit in the same room together ever since we sat in a room together in Utah for an event. And I just felt like this is someone who is fighting the good fight. This is someone who is unafraid of things that are new and are going to take over the world, aka AI, right? And this is someone who is diving deep even into the world of caring for herself in a strong way. I watched you through that event, just how can I take better care of myself and run a business and have a family and do all those things. And so I'm just excited to dive deep with you. So thank you again so much for giving us your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. It was so great when we were able to be in person together. And so I think as a lot of business owners, it's like, great, we get to see each other. And then it's so hard to make it happen again because so many things are going on. So I'm really excited to be here today.
Oh, well, and I will put a little plug in for those of you who do get to enter Brittany's world, whether she's new to you today or whether you've followed her for a little bit. She is the type of friend that you can like not talk to for a year, and then you can pick up Voxer or text her and say, hi, you want to be on the podcast? And she's like, oh my gosh, how are you doing? And like, I'm like, oh my gosh, those are my favorite kinds of friends that I can just pick up with a year later. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that you and I and many people listening, we are all in the good fight. Mm-hmm. We are all here to help people, to serve. We are all here to become better and to push ourselves. And I think that unifies us across the board.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Amazing. You guys, we're going to waste no time. We're going to talk about AI. Okay. Give us like the 3 to 5 minute version of, I mean, AI is kind of the trendy thing here. I hate calling it a trend because it is here to stay, right? But what were you in before AI? What got you into the world of AI? Like set the stage for us.
Yeah, so I was a copywriter before this, and I probably would have been a copywriter the rest of my life, except ChatGPT came out. And before I was in copywriting, I was an educator. So I was a teacher. I taught middle school science for years. And then I knew I didn't want to do that long term. I had a cancer scare and I was like, okay, I definitely don't want to do this long term, but what are my alternatives? And back then, long time ago, I just kind of had this mindset of like, what else could I possibly do? In my head, I was like, I don't have any other skills. I don't, you know what I mean? I was like, nobody's ever going to see me anything other than the teacher that I once was. And so I decided to start hanging out with other entrepreneurs. Well, I don't even know if I'd say other at the time because I didn't really consider myself an entrepreneur. Yeah. And I started hanging out with entrepreneurs and I was like, no matter what, I'm just going to hang around with these people and hope something magically wears off and I figure it out. And I noticed there's this huge difference between how these folks were behaving and the action they were taking versus what I was doing. So they were like trying to figure out stuff, trying to solve problems, taking action. And I was just coming in every like week or every other week, whatever it was. I was driving in. It was like a 3-hour round trip for me on a school night, which if you've ever been a teacher, you're like, oh, but I was like determined to figure this out because I thought other people have figured it out. Maybe I can too. And they were taking action, doing all these things. And I just came every week and complained about how I didn't know what to do. And I started to see that pattern. And I was like, okay, this is not who I want to be anymore. How can I be more like that? And so one day I was complaining and talking about how much I didn't want to be teaching. And one of my friends there, Brad, he was like, well, Brittany, nobody's forcing you to be a teacher. You could leave right now if you wanted to. And I was so mad at first. I was like, how dare, like, he doesn't understand. And I was like, I can't leave because I have insurance and I have this and I have that. And what else am I going to do? And I have to make money. And he was like, well, yeah, that's all true, but you're still choosing to stay. He's like, you could leave, you could move in with, X, Y, and Z. Like you could do all these other things to make it happen if you wanted to leave. He's like, I'm not saying you have to, but if you want to, there are options. You're not stuck in this one place unless you want to be stuck there. And that probably changed the trajectory of my whole life because from that point on, anytime something happened where I found myself like not really what I wanted to be doing, I was like, okay, nobody's forcing me to. I'm choosing to stay because it's maybe financially safer to do this right now, or I'm choosing to stay because of X, Y, and Z, or I'm choosing to leave. But everything came down to it was my choice then. And so when ChatGPT first came out, I was like, man, I really think this is going to be here for the long haul. I don't think it's going to go away. And I think that I can either, as a copywriter, I can either lean into it now or I can run from it. And I really wanted to run from it. I really wanted to just stick my head in the sand because it was kind of, that was going to be taking my whole career. And I had a really great career, really lucrative career doing evergreen email marketing for people. We had an agency, we had courses and everything. But I was like, I think I'll regret it if I don't take that leap. And because of that cancer scare I had years ago, I had felt the pang of regret. And I didn't want to feel that again. I had determined at that point I wasn't going to feel that kind of regret again. So I knew that I wanted to be looking for opportunities and that when an opportunity presented itself, I wanted to be brave enough to say yes to it. And so that's kind of how I got into AI in a nutshell.
And I've sat with you and I feel like there are pieces of this that I've never heard and that I'm just experiencing for the first time here. And I didn't recognize that you had a cancer scare, right?
Yeah. It was a weird situation. And I really think, I think that it really happened for a reason because I just went in for like a normal checkup and they were like, oh, I'm really sorry, you have cancer. It's aggressive. It's in 3 spots. And they said it was cervical cancer and all this stuff. And so I walked away from that conversation thinking, 1, I'm going to have a hysterectomy. 2, I'm going to have to, I literally thought I was dying that year because that's how they presented it to me. Oh, and so then I tried to get into a specialist. I even, because at that point I was like, I'm an action taker now, but I was like, okay, I'm going to try and get the surgery scheduled. Like I was ready. I was like, take it out of me. Like I want to do everything.
Yes.
And so when I was finally able to get into a specialist, which was like a week and a half later, she was like, I don't know what they were talking about. It isn't cancerous. It's precancerous cells. And we can get it out with like a minor inpatient or outpatient surgery. And so that's what happened. They were able to get it out. They were like, it's unlikely that it's ever going to happen again. They said it was from HPV, which apparently like 98% of people experience at some point. And usually it just resolves itself. And it just, I don't know. So it literally like that week and a half or 2 weeks of waiting to see the specialist literally changed my life because I was like, I felt so much regret for waiting to do the things until I retire or until whatever. I was like 20 at the time or 21 or whatever, maybe later. I can't remember now, but I kept pushing things off and saying, I'd do it later. I'll do it when I retire. I'll do blah, blah, blah. But that really made me think I cannot wait because at some point, like I am going to die. That's what I realized is turns out like I'm mortal. and I knew that, but I don't think I had ever really let myself think about that and think about what is it that I actually want to do in this lifetime that I have. And it's one of the reasons I dye my hair purple now. It's one of the reasons like I'm okay wearing things that maybe other people are like, oh, I wish I was brave enough, because we literally have this one life. And what a shame it would be to go through my entire life, not doing purple hair if that's what I want to do. So anyway.
Even in a lighthearted way, watching your content online as you experiment with AI and imagery, I mean, you like up in the mountains with like gerbils or like, I mean, you just have really fun, like there's a lightness to it, right? Which is so refreshing, because good heck, entrepreneurship can be so serious and so dramatic and so, forceful in many ways. And so I think it comes through in so many areas of your life. So I want to back up a little bit when you talked about how this guy, Brad, bless Brad, whoever you are, for really bringing that change into your life, where he talked a lot about choice. Obviously, you're on a podcast right now that is called Unreasonable Autonomy, right? We are all about choice here and going after things that people think are crazy. What really is the power in choosing?
I think when we realize how much choice we have, the whole world opens up to us. And I think for so many people, myself included, for a really long time, I just kind of saw my whole life through this one lens. And when I started to meet other people from different backgrounds and stuff like that, when I started to learn more things, when I started to open myself up to the idea that I had more choice, I was like, wow, the world is so much bigger than I thought, and so much more is possible than I thought. And it really informs everything that I do, from my offers to how I parent to everything. Like, even we had an offer earlier this year that we made, and I was like, you know what? I'm just not loving this. It was like unlimited calls. They could get on a Zoom call with me anytime. It was coaching. And it's a really great offer. They got a great deal. Like, I wanted to test it out and see if I liked it. And about halfway through, I was like, man, or actually, I think it was only a few months in, I was like, my blood sugar numbers are going up because I'm sitting too much during the day. I'm not getting enough sun. I'm feeling grumpy. Like, I really need to be able to be outside more. That's something I know about myself. And so I was like, how can I make this a win for everyone and be able to have more time where I'm spending time outside or I'm spending time walking? And so that kind of led into another offer that we did where it was asynchronous. And so they would get coaching, but it'd be through Voxer or WhatsApp. And so it was easier for them to get the support they needed without having to schedule a call, which was great because a lot of them are parents and, have a lot of other things going on. And it was great for me too, because it was supporting the life that I needed with my blood sugar and stuff like that. But I don't know if I hadn't realized how much choice I had, and if I hadn't trained myself to like look for other options and other solutions, I don't think I would have realized that. And I would have spent an entire year just dreading every workday. And like, nobody should work that way.
Right. And I love that a lot of this was based around, oh, I tried something and I don't love how I feel in this. And so what else, what are the other creative options I could bring to the table? And I want to just like swing around and say, our world is largely built around trying to build a life that is stable and secure. Mm-hmm. Right. And there is a reason that 401ks are popular. And there is a reason that insurance is popular. And there's a reason that the 9-to-5 is popular and sought after in college education. And I'm not going to bring my own opinions around any of that, because that doesn't matter for this conversation. My question is how do you satisfy in your own mind security and freedom? Right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, I think
a better path. How do you make choices in that way?
Yeah, I think for me, I look at what security means for me and what freedom means for me. Freedom to me used to mean like I get to just wake up and do whatever I want, whenever I want. And the more that I did that, the more I was like, this is fun, but I think that I need maybe a little more structure. I want a little bit more structure. I want to challenge myself a little bit more. And I experienced that actually a lot with AI, because I was using AI for so many things that I had so much extra time. And I started to find myself, without having some kind of structure, I started to find myself feeling a little aimless and feeling like this massive like identity crisis of like, who even am I if I'm not working, and all those things. And so I think part of it is just trying different things and seeing what feels right for you. Because at different times in my life, freedom has looked different. At one point it was, I just wanted to be able to work at home and have my dogs next to me. Like, that was what freedom looked like to me at one point. And then later on, freedom looked like being able to travel when we wanted and not feeling stressed about money or not feeling stressed about clients waiting on me and stuff like that. And so I think part of like figuring out how it all kind of connects is what is freedom, I guess, identifying what freedom looks like for you in your life right now. What does stability look like for you in your life right now? And then making choices and creating offers and things like that that align with both of those. And there's always, in my opinion, there's always a solution to that. There's always a way to find, and sometimes we have to get creative with it, but there's always a solution to it. And so it's a matter of, I think, opening up our idea of what's possible to do that. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. And it actually brings to my mind a book from Ray Dalio that's called Principles. And it's like this thick and everybody should read it, right? And one of the things that he talks about is one of the reasons that we get stuck in decision making is because we actually have not defined what our principles are or what we want. And he talks about the idea that principles and even values or a definition of freedom in your life will change over time. It will evolve with age and with family dynamic and with desires and with financial opportunities. Like all of those things are able to evolve. And, sneak peek, everybody listening, Brittany and I were talking right before about how this is a season in our lives in which there are a lot of travel opportunities right now. There are just lots of conferences and maybe lots of opportunities to learn or speak or convene and be around entrepreneurs and all those things. Like, I don't know if it's like post-COVID, like everybody's cramming it in 5 minutes after. It just is really intense right now. And you and I were just talking personally about how we're making those decisions. So do you want to open up a little bit about that, about how that ties into maybe how your opinion has shifted around travel and gathering and those things?
Yeah, so I do love to travel. I love to be at conferences and in person. And I think we're going to see more and more of that, especially as AI becomes more prevalent. I think we're going to see more of the desire for real human in-person connection, which is amazing. And my little one's in kindergarten right now, and I want to spend as much time as possible. Like, I don't even know where the past 5 years have gone. And so as I'm looking at my travel schedule, I of course want to say yes. And for me, there's kind of two layers of it. One, when I get invited from somebody who's a colleague or a friend that I really respect, and they ask me to come to an event, I'm like, of course I want to say yes. And then there's that other layer too of, is this my audience? Is this something where I feel like I'll be able to be as helpful as possible and also be able to bring money back into my business too? And so I think about those things, and I often will say yes, if it feels like the right fit, if it's somebody I really respect, I'll often say yes to those. But now when I travel, it looks a lot different. So instead of getting there a full day early and relaxing and maybe working some and then doing the conference and, all those things, and then leaving the next day, usually what I do now is that I'll leave on in the summer, I'll leave in the morning flight still, because if I leave in the afternoon in Florida, I'm going to get stuck in a storm. So I still leave in the morning the day before so that I have, that day, but I'm working at the airport. I'm recording audio on my phone while I'm driving, hands-free, of course. But then I have that's creating content for me through my AI stuff. And then at the airport, I'm working on some things. And then in the plane, I'm working on some things. And then I get there and I'll try to relax for a little bit, go over my presentation again, present the next day. And then if I don't have another presentation that following day, I usually will go home either that night or the day after, like in the morning as early as possible. And so it's been certainly harder. I think it's harder for me to go from one thing to another like that. But because there's that desire to be home with my family and with my daughter as much as possible, I'm like, for me, I'd rather have a little bit of discomfort and then have more time with my daughter than, because I know she won't be at home with us forever, and she probably won't want to be around me forever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, as she gets older, she may not want to spend as much time, but right now she really likes hanging out with mom. And so I want to be able to spend as much time with that as possible so that when she gets older, she wants to come back and see us. And so, yeah, right now it's kind of hectic. It feels intense. Going on a trip right now is not like relaxation mode. Like, oh, I'm getting a break. It's like full on work the whole time, but it's a trade-off I'm willing to make because I know what I'm trading it for.
And it's evolved. And any moms listening are like, wow, when my kids were like 2 or 3 and just that real high intensity mode of parenting, it's like, I would have sold my soul for 3 days alone in a hotel or, where I'm not doing X, Y, Z. And it does evolve. Yeah. It does evolve where all of a sudden you're sitting there on a trip and you're like, this is too long. Yeah. Or, oh man, like I'm having a pullback. And to me, that's not a moment of guilt. It's a moment of like reflection and like adjustment. Right. Yeah. And owning those opportunities. So I love it so much. And I love your intentionality in trying to build the life that you feel called to build. Okay. We've got to dive into something that I loved reading on your bio. I think there is a lot of just speculation right now on timelines of AI and when it's going to destroy the world, right? When it's going to, as you would call it, the downfall of life as we know it. Just in a 2-minute version, and then we're going to pick it apart. what is the future of AI in the next 12 months versus 5 years?
Yeah, so I think in the next 5 years, we're going to kind of start to see the dismantling of basically everything that we know as is right now, which is, I know that sounds really intense. And I think, I think there's going to be some times that are really hard for a while where people are losing their jobs both to AI and to robotics. And maybe not in the next 5 years, but certainly I think in the next maybe 5 to 7 or 5 to 10. And so I think we're going to see a lot of people that are struggling to figure out what to do. And I think we'll see entrepreneurs also struggle with that identity crisis of I'm not working as much. I think entrepreneurs will be in a pretty good spot because we're used to being resilient. We're used to problem solving. We're used to finding solutions. And so I think there's going to be some really good things that come out of this for entrepreneurs. But I think for our family members who aren't entrepreneurs, our friends who aren't entrepreneurs, there might be some difficult times ahead for them. And so the more I think that we can do to earn more money and to set ourselves up for success and test things out and see what's possible, the easier it's going to be for some of our friends and family to kind of ride that wave as well. In the next 12 months, I think we'll see a lot of changes still. AI is continuing to accelerate at just a super, super fast speed. I think with our customers and our clients, we're going to start to see some unreasonable expectations. Even now, I've started to see it a little bit where people are expecting almost immediate answers. And so we have a coach clone that can help with that. That's like a 24/7 so that it has all my content and stuff like that. So it can answer questions too. So that helps with that. But even with that, I'm starting to see that people are sometimes expecting things that just simply aren't possible yet. Like it hasn't been invented yet. And they're like, why can't I do this? And I'm like, it's not been invented. Like, I'm not just, I'm not just trying to say, no, you can't, but I'm saying this hasn't been invented yet. And so I feel like in the next 12 months, what our clients and customers and members and students will start to want is really cool because they're thinking like outside of the box and thinking about things that will be possible in the future that have never been thought of before, never been possible before. And I think we'll see maybe some clients or customers that are frustrated because they don't have those proper expectations. They think, well, shouldn't AI be able to do this? And eventually, yes, but right now it just doesn't have that capability. So those are some things I think we'll see here in the future.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you talk a lot about how entrepreneurs you think are going to do well. That has not been the message that has come across to me. That a lot of entrepreneurs are going to experience irrelevance. What's your take on that?
I mean, I think the ones that don't pivot and that are the ones that are like, this is the thing I'm going to do, and this is the only thing I'm going to do, and it's the only path forward for me, that I think those folks will really struggle with irrelevance. But the people who are willing to pivot and pivot and pivot again, like I think the days of having a flagship course and it's like, this is the only thing I talk about ever. So it used to be, where people were like one funnel, one message, one offer, like only one. I don't really think that's going to be the case anymore. And I think if you do only do that one, I think you're really going to struggle. I think as entrepreneurs, if we're willing to pivot and pivot and pivot and pivot again and find the red line, that like thread in between all of those, yeah, I'm talking about this, now I'm talking about this, but it's because of this one core value. I think if we can focus on that and building a community around that, those are the entrepreneurs who are going to thrive.
Oh, and this is fascinating. You bring up community. Mm-hmm. I was recently at an event, and I'm not going to say who it was because I can't quote it exactly, but this leader in the industry was talking about where he believes the next opportunities are due to AI entering the scene. Mm-hmm. And he drew this pyramid, and I can't even remember what he said. It was basically centered around, there's cold traffic on social media, there's warm traffic with partnerships, and then there's hot traffic that you own, right? Your email list and like whatever. And he basically circled the top part of the triangle, which was cold traffic, and he put a big X through it, right? Mm-hmm. And I was fascinated because this is someone who has really led the industry in social content. Mm-hmm. And he said, this is awesome. And in order to compete at this level, you need to be doing 25 reels a day. Like that was the example that he gave because of AI, right? Yeah. Because of AI. So he put this big X through it, and he said, look, if I were the majority of the people in the room, I would focus on this middle layer, ships and communities in order to build my business right now. So do you believe that AI is going to make social media irrelevant, useful? Like what role, how's that impacting social media for entrepreneurs specifically?
I think if you're a good storyteller, then you'll do well with social media still. I think if you're just putting up random things and you don't really have a plan, then I think that's where you'll struggle, because I think that it'll either be you feel like you have to bust out, like you said, 25 reels a day, which is not sustainable for most people, even using AI, like putting it all together. If you have maybe a VA that's helping you put it all together, great. But even then, I think, and I've seen this from some other people in the industry where I'm seeing them do a lot of posts all the time.
Oh my gosh.
I'm finding that I'm starting to kind of tune it out, because I'm like, I just can't keep up with it. And like, as a consumer, I can't keep up with it. And so I just kind of start to scroll past, because I'm like, I think to myself, I'll read it eventually. I'll never read it because there's so much.
Never see it again.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if you can be a good storyteller and kind of tie in those lines, the values that you hold, that you want to bring that community to you with, then I think you'll do pretty well. But I agree. I think community is going to be really huge with AI.
And when you think of AI, my mind immediately goes to the film WALL-E, all of us up in a spaceship, sitting in a chair, floating around, right? Do you believe that's the future?
I think it could be. I think that's one possibility. I think there's enough, especially entrepreneurs, I think there's enough of us that would not be satisfied with just sitting around watching TV all day. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, that might sound appealing for a while. Like, sure, every once in a while, I'd love to just chill and do nothing. But anytime I've done that, and this is kind of where that identity crisis came in for me earlier this year or last year, where I was like, man, who am I even if I'm not producing something, if I'm not working? And I was like, is it just because this is what I'm used to, or is it because this is what I want to do? And what I found was there's kind of an in-between where I was like, I really want to, invite other hobbies and see what I like and what I don't like. And I also still want to work because I really like what I'm doing. I like challenging myself. And I think we're going to see more people, instead of just sitting and watching TV, I think, because if I remember right with WALL-E, I remember there's a lot of that. I think we'll see people who are aware of themselves, like really intentional about their lives. I think we'll see them doing things that enhance their life and that are intentional and life-giving, life-enhancing. But I think for the people who are maybe just kind of sleepwalking through life a little bit right now, or looking for comfort, or looking for, like a distraction almost, I think that's where we're going to see people really stuck on their phones and stuck in that scrolling mode and stuck watching TV, and then getting to the end of their life and being like, I've just basically watched a sitcom my entire life. Like I didn't actually, do anything. And I was at an event here recently and sitting at a table with these folks who are older than me. And they were talking about their time. They had a factory in this one country where it was like really dangerous at the time. And they were talking about some of the stories they encountered. And another girl that was there was like, yeah, I was doing some work in, I can't remember where she was. I think it was in the USSR. And she was like, we learned later we were working for the mob. And I was like, what is happening? Like, just thinking,
surprise.
Right. Like, I did not see that conversation happening. But from the time for them, before the internet, before phones, like there were so many experiences they were having. And I'm not saying that I want to, work for the mob or anything like that. Like, no, thank you. But I am saying I realize there's a lot more experiences that I could be having that I think our phones and TV does kind of steal from. And so I think for anybody listening to this, I think one of the best pieces of advice I can give to you that I'm also giving to myself is, how can I intentionally make a habit of putting my phone away, turning the TV, turning the internet off, and having real conversations that I can tell my kids and my grandkids about later on, where it's like, man, grandma really had a great time in her life. She really lived, and inspire other people to do that too.
Oh, it is inspiring. And in fact, I was at an event yesterday and sat across from this girl who was telling me her story of the whole reason she's in entrepreneurship is because they had this really comfortable life. And literally at 3:00 in the morning, the FBI knocked on their door and took her husband away for embezzlement.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like,
that's crazy. Yeah.
Like, that's legit. And it's actually being produced into a film. They're like pitching it to film crews and creating a book about it. And I was so inspired. And I know that that's like a really traumatizing part of life, right? I understand that. But it brings in the same thing of like, I want to be able to overcome, and I want to be able to live and have a story and make decisions and all those things. And I think that there is a great fear that AI is going to numb. It is going to numb the human race and just even, I mean, have you ever experienced just trying to create something? I'm in the webinar world, right? And I'm trying to create something. The temptation is immediately, ChatGPT, help me. Like, help me get started. Give me 20 ideas or something like that. And is that beginning to numb my genius? And so how do you help people keep their own creative juices and self while using this incredible, I believe, God-given tool that's available to them 24/7?
So I think the way that I look at it is using AI tools as a collaborator or as a helper, but not as a replacement. I think we'll see it start to numb us when we view it as a replacement only and not when we just see it as a collaborator. So anything that I do, for example, let's say that I do want 20 ideas for X, Y, and Z. I'll ask for those 20 ideas, but then I'm like, I like this one, but I don't like this one. And then I'll kind of play around with it a little bit in my head. And so for me, I still use pen and paper a lot. One of the things that I really like to do is I'll do deep research, and I'll do deep research on the topic, come up with some ideas, and then I go to the springs where I don't have internet service, which I love, and I'll sit out at the springs. There's like beautiful crystal clear water, birds singing, that kind of thing, and I'll take my notebook and pen with me and just kind of write down some thoughts on stuff. And it's not productive, and that's the point of it for me, is that I could be a lot more efficient, a lot more productive if I was just sitting at the computer asking questions and then going back and forth. But I like the idea of my entire life's purpose not being about being more productive. I think I'd rather have more of the experiences and challenges than just productivity.
Okay, this was the moment of the interview for me. Finding pockets to be not productive. Oh my gosh, does that crawl into the skin of every entrepreneur, right?
Right.
So what if like the most powerful forms of entrepreneurship were ones that were not productive? Like, oh my gosh, that's a shift for me. Bless you.
Yeah, where you start to kind of discover again who you are, and like it's like something creeps in your soul where all of a sudden you're like in productivity mode, go, and then it's like those moments of pause where you get to play around with the idea of who you want to be the rest of your life and what life could look like and what would it mean if you slowed down, and is it okay to not be a robot? And I think it is. And so like I've started doing poetry and stuff like that, stuff that I've always wanted to do but never had time for. And so now I have time for it, and it's almost like this little act of rebellion of, I love AI, I love using it, and I don't want to become a robot because you know what I mean? I want to have this human experience. And what does that look like for me to have like this full human experience?
And I love this concept of active rebellion, right? Active rebellion, that I understand the role that it plays in my life. And something that you brought up that I think is so optimistic, you've got a child, I've got kids, it's great. And one of the biggest constraints for women specifically, or I should include men in this because men are fathers and fathers matter a lot, and that influence matters, is the time crunch, right? There have been massive challenges in trying to build a meaningful, impactful, standout business when time is limited, right? And that's been a chip on many shoulders of moms and parents and those things. And AI is solving that. It is quite literally right now solving that. Go.
I was going to say it really levels the playing field, because in the past it was like, man, if you don't have kids, you definitely have a leg up because there's the mental space of it. There's the physical space, like your house is not always a mess and, that kind of thing. And then there's the emotional space of it too. And you have all this extra time, but then you also have all the extra mental, physical, emotional space. But now with AI, it's like we have similar time. Even though I have kids and this other person doesn't, we still have, pretty level playing field. Whereas before it was definitely different. And I didn't realize that before I had a kid. I was like, oh, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And now looking back, I'm like, oh, what an idiot. What a dumb thing. And so, but yeah, it really does level the playing field. And I think it levels the playing field between bigger corporations and smaller businesses too. And I think in a lot of ways, solopreneurs and entrepreneurs with small teams actually have a leg up over big corporations because there's less red tape for them to go through, less changes. You know what I mean? Like if they want to pivot, which I think, like I said earlier, I think pivoting is going to be huge in the future, being able to go back and forth. We can do that a lot easier than these big corporations. And so I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Oh, I love it. And to stay on that train of optimism of this is leveling the playing field, right? This is leveling it just like when social media happened. It was like it leveled the playing field in advertising. I felt like, right? Visibility for small entrepreneurs. When we talk about staying optimistic with it. There are many people listening here who are saying, like, I am not seeing the impact of AI benefiting my business. Maybe all they've done is open ChatGPT and had some conversations with it or something like that. What would be the very first thing you would have them do with AI that would give them their time back?
I always tell people to start with a time study, because a lot of times there's so much more that we're doing in a day than we realize. And so it's going to be hard for AI to help you if you're not giving it the full picture of what your day actually looks like. And so for a time study, yeah, exactly. For a time study, I usually have people do at least 4 days and for 15 minutes at a time. So every 15 minutes, my alarm goes off. I write down what I'm doing at that time. If I don't do it that way, I will forget. And then I'll be like, oh, I only did a few things today, when really I did like 17,000. That's what I do. I just keep it in a spreadsheet to make it really easy for myself. And then I put that into ChatGPT and I say, okay, based on what you see here and based on what you know about me, like my personality, my preferences, how the ways that I make money best, that kind of thing. What are the ways that you can help me save time and make more money? And then it gives me a list of things that are specific to me. And then once I have that, then I can go in deeper on it and say, all right, you said this thing. Can you describe that a little bit more? What do you mean by that? And what does that look like? And then I ask it to give me the step-by-step instructions as well. And I use it for other stuff too in my personal life as well, like cooking. I used to think I was a terrible cook because my food was gross. Like, it was not good. And I started using AI and asking it to go step-by-step with me. And it turns out I'm not actually a bad cook. I just have a hard time following instructions and like staying focused long enough to get through a whole thing. And so I would miss steps or I'd miss ingredients. And that's why it was so bad. And now I'm like, I'm amazing at this because I'm actually following instructions, because I say like, okay, here's pick a recipe for me. It picks it out. And then I'm like, all right, give me the first step. I'll tell you when I'm done and we can move on to the second step. And so it literally just goes step by step for me, almost like I have like a chef tutoring me in the kitchen.
Like, you legit have your phone or your laptop up next to your stove and you're like browning the meat and then you're saying done and then you're draining and then done. Oh my gosh.
I know. It makes such a big difference. Like anybody, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs sometimes struggle with focus, especially those of us who are good at pivoting and who are thinking about a million things at once, who are multi-passionate. And so if that's you, I'm telling you, this is going to change your cooking life forever, just having it go step by step with you.
This is so good. And I feel like you took it to the next level. Dan Martell, who I love, Buy Back Your Time. Okay. That's the first time I ever heard about time studies and like breaking it up and figuring it out. Right. And his book, I think, is standard. Absolute standard. Everybody needs to buy Ray Dalio and Dan Martell, and I'll give you 100 others you need to buy. But taking this to the next level and saying, you're not just tracking what you're doing during your work hours every 15 minutes through the day. What about the 15 minutes after you've clocked out? What are you doing? What about dinner time? What are you doing? What about, right? So do you expand, am I understanding you expand that time study into your other life? It's all one life, but your other life?
Yeah. So as long as I'm awake, I have it going off so that I can see what I'm actually doing. Because there's a lot of things that I'm doing after work hours that if I didn't put that in there, I probably wouldn't have included it. And there's so many ways AI can help. I mean, even like thinking about chores and stuff like that, how to make chores more fun and easier to accomplish and easier to get done, or a cleaning plan, or here's a habit that I'm having a hard time getting going. Can you help me figure out where to put it in? Those kind of things.
Incredible. And that's really where I believe the wrap up is there are things you have to be aware of with AI and have to be aware on how it's impacting your business. And also there is intense optimism in it that maybe all of that extra time or that level playing field you've been wanting, like it is ushering that in right now, and don't miss it. Mm-hmm. Incredible. So you've got a daughter who is starting or has started kindergarten.
Yeah, she started this week.
Okay. What kind of world is she going to inherit?
So I think we're going to see a lot more confusion about what's real and what's not real. So one of the things that we do with her is I have my AI clone that does some of my YouTube videos and things like that for me, and my AI voice that records some of my podcasts. And so I have her listen to it or watch it. And I say, do you think this is real mommy or AI mommy? And I don't even care if she gets it right. I just want her to start thinking, is it even possible that this isn't real? because I think we're going to start to see a lot of confusion around that because AI is getting so good. And that I think is something that's really important to teach our grandparents, our parents as well, so that they can start to recognize that, oh, maybe this thing I saw on Facebook isn't actually happening or isn't actually real. Maybe I shouldn't be upset about it, or maybe I should, you know what I mean? But I think it gives us an idea to, even if we're just thinking, is it possible that this isn't actually real, I think is going to be really helpful and a skill that people need to know. So there's that. I think that she's going to be able to do a lot more than has ever been possible for us. When I think about my grandparents and my parents, for example, the only option really was work harder. If you want to get ahead, if you want to have more safety and stability and pass that on to your kids, you have to work harder. You have to work additional jobs or whatever. We're starting to see in our generation, we're starting to see that kind of be dismantled, which is exciting and weird at the same time.
Yes.
And I think it's going to be less of that for her. And so I think people who can focus on storytelling, being great at community, having the ability to communicate with people both in person and online, I think those are the people who we're going to see thriving. And so those are the kind of the skills that I'm starting to instill in her. Like when somebody says, "Oh, I love your shoes," we're trying to teach her, look at them in the eyes and say thank you and those kind of things. And at night, like I'll tell her a story, and sometimes she has started to want to tell stories back. And so practicing some of those skills that are really fun and make memories, but also I think will serve her in the future is kind of what I'm thinking. And then I'm also really excited that I think she won't feel like she has to work hard to earn her worth as much as I have, as much as I think my parents and grandparents have. And so that's a really exciting thing too.
That is exciting, that you are optimistic about the world she will grow up in, and you're preparing her for it.
Yeah. And the caveat to that, I do think I think there's going to be some really rough times for a while, but I think overall, I think it will get better. And I think it's going to get better in her lifetime. I think that there will be a period of time that's really quite rough. And so what I'm thinking there is, how do I help her be more resilient during those times? And how do I make sure that we're setting ourselves up financially so that if things are rough, if it is hard for her to find a job for a little while, that she has kind of a backup plan. She has a safety net a little bit. So yeah, I think I am optimistic about the future, but I do think there's going to be a period of time that is rough as we're getting there. I mean, when we look at so many of our systems in society, we look at education, we look at the healthcare system, a lot of those, it feels like, at least to me, it feels like a lot of those are at a tipping point and a breaking point. And with AI kind of stepping in, I think a lot of AI can either replace or supplement some of those roles. And so I think there's just going to be a lot of things changing kind of all at once. Even something like an universal basic income. That's something that a lot of people have been really against, but I think that's something that will be our only option in the future, at least for a little while people are losing jobs or jobs are changing, or even robotics are starting to take over some of those things. I think that that's going to be an option that people have to consider. And so there's going to be a lot of change. I think there's going to be a lot of shifts that are uncomfortable, but I think overall we're headed towards a better future, but it's going to be weird for a while.
Okay. And can I go even further with you?
Mm-hmm.
On that? Because I'm just fascinated by this. I don't know if it's like dystopian kind of, but we're all Hunger Games kids and
right.
want to hear about it. When you say you said multiple times in this interview that you believe there are years or maybe even decades of darkness or discomfort or wildness. Are you specifically just saying people won't be able to find work? Is that what you're envisioning, or what does that look like specifically to you?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a time where people have a harder time finding work, especially if they're unwilling to learn AI or unwilling to adjust to AI. Because I think really where we're going to see it is when we have that crossover between AI and robotics. I think that's because then we have robotics taking over some of those lower paying jobs that maybe people who would go to, that they're either just starting out or they have lost their job, they're looking for something in between. I don't think we're going to see as many of those. And of course, we're going to see a lot more jobs because of AI too. There's a lot that, that can grow with that. But I think with automations, AI, robotics, I think when those three kind of combine and they're all moving forward quickly, I think that's where we're really going to see some massive changes. And it could be wrong. I honestly kind of hope that I am. Like I am big into comfort. I like being comfortable. And so I kind of hope that I am, but I'm not sure. So I think we could also see people who are like, you know what, I don't really want to subscribe to this life with AI and stuff like that. I do think we could see some more like homesteading and those kind of things where people are like, I'm just going to live off the land and not use money as much as I can, like try to just save as much as I can. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing either. I think overall we'll probably see less consumerism in the future and more of a shift towards meaningful experiences over consumerism. But again, I think it's just such a fluid time where it's like we'll see some of these things shift a lot. And so, yeah, that's why I keep saying it'll be weird because even trying to picture what that could look like versus what it looks like now, where at least in the US, we have a society that's hyper capitalized, hyper consumerism. And, your work is often equated with your worth, which is, I don't think, a correct thing, but I think it's just kind of ingrained in the society. And so, I just think there's so many things that will have to change because of AI, because of robotics, because of automations. I think that our only option will be to change some of these things that are really outdated.
And it almost, I think sometimes we look at it, I think sometimes we look at it so locally to us. Mm-hmm. And we think, what I'm hearing is you really feel like the middle class way of living is going to disappear. Yeah. Right? That those who pivot are going to do really well. And some are going to go to the other extreme. And I'm not calling it lower class, but going to the other extreme of just, I'm going to just be independent and I'm going to homestead and I'm going to figure out survival in that kind of way. But just this huge, like the world is open to you. The world is your oyster, sort of that middle section of it is going to dissipate because it will be replaceable. Right? That's what I'm hearing. So, and would you agree that that's potentially what you see?
Yeah. And the gap, I think, is growing. The gap between people who have more time, have more money, have more availability and options versus the people who don't, I think the gap is growing. I think it's growing quickly. And so if you're somebody who is like, I want more options, if, for example, if travel is important to you, if that financial security of like, if I get in an accident or something like that happens, I want to make sure I have the money to pay for it. I want to be able to have money to pay for my kid to have this, over the top birthday party, whatever it is. If those things are important to you, then I think pivoting with AI is going to be really important. If those things aren't important to you, if you're like, man, I just want like a little piece of land that I can live on and grow my own stuff and like not really talk to anybody, like if that's what you want, that's okay too. And I wonder, and I'm not sure about this is just something that's coming up for me as I'm saying it, but I wonder if as we see that gap growing, if we'll see even subsets within that gap of people who are wanting to continue that consumerism and stuff like that versus the people who are like, you know what, I don't really want to continue in that direction. And now I don't really have the revenue to do it either. So why don't we do this other option instead and end up really enjoying it? And then I think we'll have the people who want that other lifestyle, but don't know how to get it. And that's where I think there's going to be the difficult times, especially for those folks who are like, I want to travel. I want to do all these extra things that I see other people doing and kind of falling into that consumerism trap or that comparison trap. And it's okay for them to want, like, it's okay for us to want something different too. And so I guess what I'm saying is I think it'll be helpful as the gap increases to really be clear on what it is that you want and what you want that life to look like and I think we'll have that gap happen until we eventually go to UBI. Again, because I think that's really just the only option that we'll have is that people will need something to live on. And if they don't have the money coming in from lost jobs and stuff like that, that we'll have to have something like that. And I'm not sure if that's the best option, but I just don't see any other path forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And would you agree that it seems like tech in general, the tech industry, right? I live very close to Silicon Slopes, is how they call it here in Utah, where just tech has dominated the Wasatch Front here in Utah. And it's so fascinating to say, gosh, for like 15 years, almost 20 years, tech has dominated. Dominated. And everybody down the street that's in a $5 million home is in the tech industry. That's what they're doing, right? And they have brought such opportunity to so many people like you and I. And it's interesting. My husband is an anesthesiologist. He's a physician. And it's almost coming full circle in the sense of now tech is actually starting to be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
And now the fact that he does something where he sticks needles in people's backs, they're pretty far away from being able to have a robot or
I wouldn't want a robot to do that.
Right? But it's just fascinating that many of the hands-on things, as far as electricians and plumbers and maybe things that would be considered blue collar, they will be actually some of the last things that we will be able to replace. It's just, and I'm just observing, not saying whether that's right or good or scary or not, but just fascinating to watch the cycle kind of come back to those hands-on things.
One of the people that I really like listening to that I'm in a mastermind with, Nuno Tavares, he was talking about how he thinks in the future there'll be RAS. So you know how there's SaaS, software as a service.
Yes.
He thinks there'll be RAS, robot as a service. And so you'll have people who can do massage or whatever it is, or lawn care, lawn mowing, and you'll have them hiring robots and having like a team of robots that can do that can paint your house, that can do those kind of things. And so that's something we might see in the future too is, and again, if you have the money, it gives you more options. And that's one of the reasons that I think it's important to make as much as you can right now so that you have options in the future, if that's the direction that you want to go, to be able to say, okay, do we want to have an agency that paints people's houses with our drone or with our robot or whatever it is? Because I think that's definitely something we'll see in the future.
Oh my gosh, you guys, this is it's just exciting to dream.
Yeah.
Right? It's exciting to dream. And I firmly believe that if AI feels dark and scary to you, the best way to go about those feelings is to shine a light on it and to explore it and say, what if, and how do I fit into that? And like Ray Dalio would say, actually define what you want and how does AI play into that? And how is it a tool for that rather than just saying, I'm just going to see what happens and hope I survive. That's going to be a scary mindset to be in as things change.
Yeah, I think the best thing that you can do is to, start to ask yourself, okay, if this thing that scares me happens, what's my next step? I remember years ago, I had probably a period of 6 months where I just felt like I was really, really low. And I felt like I couldn't figure out how to make money and I couldn't figure out how to where my place was in business. And I just felt super, super lost. And I remember talking to my mindset coach about it because I had been spiraling on what's my next step and what do I do? And nothing just seemed to be working. And I remember she was like, all right, Brittany, so let's talk about your worst case scenario. She's like, you are kind of spiraling around this. So let's call it out. Let's talk about this worst case scenario. What would you do if this happened? And I was like, okay, well, if that happened, and for those of you that kind of don't know me and my story, so I was a teacher for 4 years. My dad was a teacher for 37 years. And we kind of had this lower middle class kind of thing going on. And so there's always this mindset of not enough and fear of what if we don't have enough? What's going to happen? I need to work harder. I need to work another job, that kind of thing. And so when my mindset coach and I were talking about this, she was like, okay, worst case scenario, you have no sales. She's like, that seems unlikely because you have sales every month, you have recurring revenue, but let's just say something crazy happens and you have no sales. What are you going to do? And I was like, at first I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds so stressful. And then I started thinking about it and I was like, oh, okay, well, I would do this, then I would do this, then I would do this. And she's like, all right, let's go worst case scenario. That doesn't work. You file for bankruptcy, you lose your house. What's next? What are you going to do? And I was like, well, we would do this, then we do this, then we do this. And it was wild because I thought there was no way I could figure this out. But when we actually called out what that fear was and kind of followed the breadcrumbs of if I didn't have any other option but to figure it out, I realized I would figure it out. And I think that's one of the reasons entrepreneurs are in a good position because whether we know it or not, we're problem solvers, we're figure it outers, because you have to be when you own your own business. That's the only option. Yes. And so once I was able to see what that worst case scenario was, now anytime I find that lack of abundance starting to come in, I just go back to, well, what's the worst case scenario here and what would I do? Okay, well, we're good then. And then I can just take action instead of getting stuck in that spiral.
Yes, I love that. Just shine a light on it and actually go down the road of the worst case scenario because maybe it's actually not that bad.
Yeah.
Right? It's not as bad as you think. Oh, and that will be such a gift to your daughter to have her be raised by a mom who's willing to go through the worst case scenario with her or with herself. I think it's powerful. Well, Brittany, we have been so well fed today. So well fed by your perspective, by your honesty, by your ability to face the scary, right? Face the scary and really being able to watch how your life is transformed by leaning into your agency and your choice and what that's produced. So thank you to that random Brad guy for starting you on your journey. In typical unreasonable autonomy fashion, I have a couple of rapid fire questions for you as we wrap up. I do this with every guest. They kind of come up at random. Thank you, AI, to make that happen. So you ready for it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Very first one that I ask everyone is, what is one book every single entrepreneur should read?
I think The Compound Effect is the book that changed my life the most at the beginning. And then The Psychology of Money, I think, is a really great one also. Yeah, I think those are my favorites right now.
We will link those in the comments for sure so that people can reference those quickly. My second question actually comes from our interview. And you talk a lot about how one of the challenges we'll face with AI is what is real. And so what is your core source of truth and discernment?
I don't know if I have an answer for this one, to be completely honest. I don't think there is one. And for me, I just kind of try to look at what's the context in the situation. Is it possible that this could be false, or is it possible this could be marketed in a certain way? I think in general, I'm a little bit pessimistic when it comes to that. As somebody who's been in marketing and who's seen marketing, I think there's pretty much an angle for everything. And so I'm always trying to see, what's the angle here? What is this video trying to show me or make me believe or think or feel or do? And is there an alternative to this? And is there something else that might be happening behind the scenes that I should investigate?
Ooh, getting curious and thinking slowly, deciding slowly. Things. I love that so much. All right. Third one is, what is something that is on your bucket list that you have not done yet?
I don't know. I've done most of the things that I can think of. I really want to. I'm
a true cancer survivor.
Right. Yeah. It was even just the idea of cancer for me. But yeah, I think most of the things that I've really wanted to do in my life, I have. I'd love to publish a book of poetry. I think that's something that I'd really like to do eventually, and maybe learn some more art.
And thank you to AI for giving Brittany Long her time back. We can.
Happy.
I love it so much. All right. Our very last question here, maybe more sensitive in nature. When you imagine yourself at the end of your life, what do you hope your daughter says about you?
I think the thing that I hope the most is that she knows that she is loved and supported, and that I'm somebody that did that and that lived a full life myself. Like I hope she knows that I would do anything for her and love her very much, and that I also lived a life that was fulfilling to me as Brittany, and not just me as mom or me as wife or me as entrepreneur, but to the core of who I am as a person and my values and what I want for my life, that I got it and that she can too.
I love it. I love it so much. And I would say you are well on your way, not to the end of your life, but on your way to being that type of mother to her. So congratulations to you. Well, thank you again so much for sharing your story and sharing so much about AI and inspiring us all to, face it, shine a light on it, and see how it can actually help us create the lives that we most desire. So thank you again to the amazing Brittany Long. I am so glad we've been able to introduce you to our audience, and excited for them to dive into your world and learn even more from you. Thank you again so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Unreasonable Autonomy podcast. If you loved this episode, my guests and I would love to hear about it. Go to the show notes to reach out and let me know what resonated with you, or what topics or guests you want to hear in the future. I am here to create for you. Look, I deeply admire your commitment to pushing boundaries and going after an unreasonable life. Keep dreaming big, taking bold steps, and expecting the unreasonable. For more, go to the show notes to dive deeper into the conversations that will keep you going. Thanks for being here.